Hey everybody, I'm Garen and this is CitizenDiplomacy.net. I'm on a mission to talk to one person from every country in the world, and today we're talking to Fernando from Argentina. I had talked to Miguel before, but I just wanted to explore some of those subjects in a little bit more depth, hyperinflation and capital controls and political freedoms, because in America, we're facing some of those same issues, and people say that could never happen here. That's conspiracy theory, the sky is falling stuff. But I wanted to talk to somebody who could say, no, it can happen because it did. It happened in my country, and here's the lessons that you can learn. So it's not to badmouth Argentina. It's not to paint it in a negative light, because just like talking to Miguel, Fernando affirms that it's a great place. It sounds like a fantastic country. It'd be a lot of fun to go visit, but I just wanted to have a meaningful conversation and share some lessons that we could learn from. So I hope that you enjoy the conversation, and without further ado, here it is, Fernando from Argentina. Enjoy. Hey, Fernando.
Hey. Can actually see you now.
Yeah, awesome. I turn off window stuff so my computer would run faster.
I'll just get a couple more books so as to get this high enough, because if not, it's not leveled well. So I was watching. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great project that you have in mind there.
Cool, thanks.
Oh,
it's been a lot of fun so far. Getting to meet people from around the world. I have a lot that I haven't uploaded yet. So
right.
The ones that are on the site now are just some of my friends, but it's been really cool. I've been able to meet some really cool people since then too.
Great sounds. I think it's as you said there, I saw some of a couple of your videos in YouTube. It's like we're more alike than people sometimes like to think.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So yeah.
Well, and it's, today's Memorial Day in the United States, and I don't know, in America, I love America, I don't want to say too much bad stuff about it, but we have this idea that we have to always be fighting for freedom, and
right.
Occasionally, anybody does, fighting and war is part of human nature, I guess, but more often than not, it's these, bullshit reasons that they give us, and I think that, if we put as much energy into finding common ground than we did blowing people up, we'd have a lot more success in terms of security that way, so.
Right. Yeah, I think it's, we tend to think that everyone has, I think that what we get fed through mainstream media, sometimes it's biased towards certain agendas
mm-hmm.
that may fit what they want most people to believe, but it's really not like that. When you go to these places, when you travel around the world, you realize that people basically want the same things in the end, even though there are always differences and such, and in different cultures, but ultimately it's more of similarities than differences.
Yeah, for sure. Last summer I went to Iran for a few weeks, and I don't know about in Argentina, but I mean in America you can't turn on the TV every day without hearing about, oh my gosh, these Iranians with their nuclear weapons, right. We got to go over there, we got to stop these guys.
Right.
And I'd walk down the street and people would go, oh, we love America, and kiss us on the cheeks, and we're like, what? Something doesn't add up here.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
I'm actually not in Argentina anymore. I left over a year ago now.
Okay. Where are you at now?
In Ireland.
Ireland?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Northern Ireland, yeah.
Cool. What's it like there?
It's all green hills and leprechauns.
Is it a big difference from Argentina, or I don't know, big culture shock or not?
I lived in U.S. when I was very little. I lived in Boston when I was a little kid.
Cool.
For 3 years, and yeah, of course there are differences. Latins are a little bit more friendlier and touchier. like that kind of thing. So it is like a little bit more cold to a degree
Mm-hmm.
in the kind of relationship. Latins like kiss a lot when saying hi and all.
Yeah.
Uh, like smooshy all the time. But other than that, I mean, it's been a good change for us. Well, we left because it was getting a little bit too problematic in terms of crime and all that was getting kind of bad, and we decided that wasn't what we wanted for ourselves and our kids. So
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we left.
Cool. Well, that's why I reached out to you because um, I talked to a guy from Argentina yesterday,
Yeah.
and we didn't get into like any like really meaty issues. He wasn't really into politics or economics too much, and there's kind of two things that I would like to talk about. One, I'm sure Argentina, no matter despite what's going on, it's still probably a fantastic place, beautiful, good people,
Yeah.
great culture, all that. So I'd like to share that, but also on my site, I don't want to just talk about fluffy stuff, because I would have 200 interviews saying, "Oh, our food is great and the people are really nice," So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about engaging subjects, and right now in the United States, we're printing money like crazy, and a lot of people are talking about possible hyperinflationary period to come, and there's lots of kind of hints at capital controls and stuff. So I just read yesterday about how in Argentina they're restricting people's you know exchange of pesos into other currencies, notably
Right.
dollars, in order to force people to keep their capital in the peso to stop people from fleeing and hedging their money.
Running away, running
Yeah.
away like I did.
So, anyways, like I'd love to tell Americans, hey, in America, anybody says the word hyperinflation, and people go, "Oh, you're doom and gloom. This is America. This is the best country in the world. We have no
Yeah.
problems." So I'd like to go, hey, here's a guy who lived through that. He knows what it's like. So listen up a little bit. This stuff is happening in the world, and it can happen to us too.
Yes, I like to think that maybe it wouldn't happen as bad as it happened in Argentina and U.S. That's like my wishful thinking, because I wouldn't like. I love U.S. I have some great friends over there and such, and I think it's a fantastic place. And I would never like wanted to go through what happened in Argentina, knowing perfectly well what it is like. At the same time, I think that U.S. it's going through something like what happened in Argentina. You're talking about printing money, man. Yes, that's indeed one of the things that basically destroyed the country, and inflation. Inflation is sometimes hidden. It's hidden in certain ways, like it's sometimes concealed so as to not make it as obvious. With maybe the price is not changing, but the size of things are getting smaller, and the amount of the expensive stuff that they put in it is reduced, and it's silly things like that. But you notice the ingredients are no longer the expensive ones that they used to use, so they start using more cheaper stuff in everything. So it's like a general a little bit of degrading of the quality of stuff and quality of life as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. And yeah, I'd just be interested to maybe kind of hear your progression through that, because like my girlfriend and I talk about this a lot. How um, I'm trying to figure out what I want to say. Like, there's this guy that I read all the time. He has a website called Sovereign Man. His name is Simon Black, and he talks
Yeah.
about diversifying your life. Where you live in one country and you have a bank account in another country, and you have a business in a third country, just so that when things like this happen, if you have fluctuations or ups and downs, then you're
Yeah.
not, you're exposed to opportunities, and you're protected from the dips. So I always talk about, maybe it'd be kind of neat to spend some time overseas and do some of that stuff, and kind of get exposure to some, like Chile or some place that's really growing right now. And we talk a lot about how, we don't want to be reactionary or escapist or, doom and gloom or anything, but you want to be practical at the same time too. So, like you're saying, it's not like it sounds like it's not like your life just takes a total nosedive and things get horrible, But like you said, there is a slight degradation there, and do you want to be susceptible to that, or do you want to be self-reliant and say, you know what, I don't want to be affected by that?
Yeah, that was. I had a good life, all things considered, in Argentina. I was doing well, economically speaking, so to speak. I wasn't lacking of anything. I wasn't part of the 85% of the country that's struggling in terms of money, and I was sending my kids to a good private school, but at the same time I realized, the kind of conversations lots of Argentines, middle class or a little bit upper middle class, maybe even have. You're looking at a car that you want to buy, but the thing you think of is, well, maybe if I buy that car, I'm much more likely to get robbed or have problems because of that. And you say, okay, I'll go with a cheaper one just in case. Or you're talking about going somewhere, and well, yes, maybe you go on holidays to one of the beach towns like Pinamar, which is one of the nicer places to go on holidays in Argentina in the summer. Nice beaches, nice little town and all. But at the same time, there was lots of robberies, and you weren't never. I mean, it got to a point where that kind of thing was affecting your life,
Uh-huh.
and you had to make changes of the way you lived. Lots of guys like higher income type of people, they would just move to a gated community and live in that gated community. They send their kids to a gated community school, and they never leave that that gate that they have. I just don't think that's much of a freedom or quality of life. I like to live in a place that, like I live now, that I know that even if I leave the door open all week long, nothing's going to be happening.
Uh-huh. Cool.
So, I mean, you miss a lot of things. You miss when you leave permanently like that. You miss lots of things. You miss your culture, your family. But at the same time, at least us, we feel we've gained a lot as well in terms of peace of mind,
Mm-hmm. Neat.
So, yeah.
That's really cool to hear you say that, because I was talking to somebody the other night, and I was saying how in America, we talk about freedom so much. Like we feel like, we invented freedom and this is the freest place in the world. But what does it really look like, in terms of your daily life? And it's kind of like what you're saying, like, yeah, I mean, you can technically be free, but how does that play out in your daily life, And it's like, if you, like you said, if you worry about your safety, or, if you are worried about how to make ends meet and feed your family, or if you go and work at a job you hate, or if you're unemployed, like, is that what freedom means? Like, can you truly be free if you have those constraints in your mind,
Yeah, I mean, in Argentina right now, there's 30% of inflation each year.
Whoa.
How could you possibly sleep at night knowing that? And that's only for a margin of society, 30% for a certain margin. If you have, for example, like I had, like a private school bill, if you have like private medical bills, it's even worse than that. So how can you live knowing that maybe next month you won't be able to make it at the end of the month with the kind of income you're getting? That's freedom, as you said, as well.
Yeah. When you were talking about, the kind of car that you were considering buying, were there people in Argentina that were saying, like, well, you shouldn't be buying a big fancy car anyways, Like, were there people like that, like, oh, that's the rich people? Was stuff like that going on?
I remember some of the conversations always, like, at this time, back in the day, I was doing like a firearms instructor course.
Okay.
Getting my firearms instructor thing going on. And one of the guys, he had good money and all, and he was saying about buying a car. He wanted to buy a certain SUV something, and people and the guys, imagine a gun club. It's always guys that are more aware of security, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we were telling him, yeah, but chances of you getting mugged because of the damn car are so much. And he said, life is too short, I'll buy it anyway. And he bought the thing, and I'm not kidding, a couple of weeks later, he got mugged because of the freaking car. And you were like, man, another guy there in the club, he bought an armored SUV because of those things. So, yeah, I suppose a lot of people would say, well, why would you buy a fancy car? But that, at least to me, that sounds too much like communist. I don't know if you. I mean, why wouldn't you buy a car that you can perfectly afford with what you rightfully earned?
Yeah, for sure. That's why I asked, just because that happens in America a lot. We always talk about the 1%. And it's like this 99% versus the 1%. And we're always like, oh my gosh, these rich people, they don't pay as much taxes, and they, have special rules, which in a lot of cases is true.
Yeah.
But we lump people into that category that don't belong there. Like, yeah, there's the 1% who are like the bankers, who are the ones that are printing all of the money or get bailouts or, talking about the highest levels of the economy. There's my stepdad, who is a businessman, and he is a doctor and runs his own businesses. And the guy is 67. He works, 6 days a week. He works 12, 14-hour days. And he has a nice car. And people kind of grumble like, oh, he drives a Cadillac. It's like, yeah, because everyone else his age is retired, and he's putting in 14-hour days. If he wants to buy a Cadillac, go for it. You earned it. But
yeah, if he wants laminated in gold, rock on. If that's what does it for him.
Yeah.
Why should he?
The thing too is, like, he employs 60 or 70 people, and he has thousands of people who come through his doors every day who leave. He's a veterinarian, so it's their pets, but they leave in better health. He's rendering a service, and rather than going, wow, he's making money because he's improving a lot of people's lives, people go, oh, he's just this greedy guy who wants Cadillacs.
Yeah, I think that these days that's more common in Argentina. All the like left-leaning kind of politics going on, and it's kind of funny because on one hand, the politicians over in Argentina are saying that you should live with less, and anyone driving a fancy car is a rich capitalist pig and whatnot. At the same time, these are the folks that are amassing fortunes that you wouldn't believe. And so you have these politicians lecturing you about how you should live, and this same woman has $100,000 of jewelry on her as she's speaking, and she has like $5 billion in cash in her house. So it's like, give me a break. And they live in the fanciest possible places you could think of, and have all this stuff that they're telling you should not have. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a double-sided thing,
Yeah, for sure. When you ran that firearms business, like, was that your primary business, and like that was a business that you ran?
No, I was a student. I was doing I was taking the class.
Ah, I gotcha.
Yeah, yes, I like shooting quite a bit, and usually take like fire. I would take like a pistol, a shotgun, defensive shooting. Usually, that would be the kind of thing that I like doing.
Oh, okay, cool. And the laws in Argentina allow for that? Like, it's a fairly friendly, firearms country?
Yeah, and nothing like U.S. I think there's no other country like that with that good gun laws. But all things considered, you could have a handgun, and you can buy a Glock. You can do practical shooting, that sort of stuff. Cool. A concealed carry license is a little bit, quite a bit more complicated. You could still get it if you know the right people who are involved with certain political groups that actually hand away those licenses. So if you had like the right contacts, you could get a concealed carry license as well.
Wow, that is, obviously America, like, there's no other place like that. But even that surprises me that you could get a concealed license.
It's not at all common, unless again. right now they're doing like this thing because it's been 10 years since the same people, the Kirchner family, has been running the country.
Mm-hmm.
It was first Nestor Kirchner, the husband of the woman that's now president, Christina Kirchner. And all in all, it's been him, then her, then she was reelected, and they're talking about changing the constitution for indefinite reelections, which is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
At least for me, it is. And
What do the
well,
people say to that? Like the people are okay with that idea?
I think that it's half. It's like half the country. It's completely on board with it because they have a personal stake on it. They're benefiting. I mean, no one, not a single person can honestly look at you in the eyes and tell you this isn't wrong. This isn't a corrupt regime that we have. It is not. It got to the point where this isn't about politics. This is about you have one only political group running the country, and either you're with them or you're against them, and they're very vocal about it. They've restricted freedom of press a lot. 80% of the press, media, printed or TV or radio, is controlled by the government, either directly or indirectly, and they're doing everything they can to stop the 20% that is left. That is a media group called Clarín that they're fighting like nothing before. So either you're with them or you're against them. And if you're with them, you get benefits. You get payoffs. And it's funny because you see many actors, actresses, people that are like, imagine like Oprah all of a sudden saying, yes, we should vote for him because, and then you see all the papers about how much money she's getting paid for all that stuff. And you see these guys that, actors, actresses that suddenly have their own production companies. They have millions and millions given to them by the state. And they're doing these miniseries and production films and TV series, and I mean, man, a lot of money, millions and millions to these guys for their political support.
Crazy. And
It is insane. It is insane. I never thought I would see something like that. I mean, I'm talking about musicians, like rock stars, all of a sudden saying, "Yes, we have to vote for this woman and this and that." And then you read that they go to these political rallies and they get paid like, I don't know, $300,000 for a couple of hours of being there. And of course, they go for that. They make a lot of money, and I personally think that it's morally incorrect to do something like that. But
for sure.
Well,
and apparently it works, huh? People go, oh, well, my favorite rock star thinks that I should vote for this guy, so I guess I will.
Yeah, wow. and it's off.
Wow.
No, it's creepy. I think it's kind of creepy thinking of changing the constitution for indefinite re-elections. That for me was okay. We have to do something. We shouldn't be living like that anymore.
Yeah, for sure. That's so nuts. The thing that that happens in our country a little bit too, where like just last week there was this huge scandal where the federal government was monitoring phone calls from the Associated Press, where most of the news comes from, because there was a guy who had been involved in like obtaining secrets about South Korea or something. I can't remember all the details, but same thing. It's like how can this happen? Like, how can we allow the political scene to get involved in journalism, and monitoring and controlling and stuff, and that's so antithetical to a free society, and half of the people get mad and the other half go, oh, you just hate Obama because he's black and you're racists.
Right.
It's like, no, this is about freedom,
it has nothing
man.
to do with that. You're mixing things that have nothing to do one another.
Yeah.
I think that it's what's happening right now in the U.S. It's like a milder version of what's happening. Argentina is so much in your face and so much like, are you kidding me? It's so obvious everything that you're doing. Maybe in US it's a little bit more subtle, at least as of right now. I don't know if it's going to be getting worse or not. I hope it never does get that bad. But quite a bit of similarities actually in all these things about using maybe the IRS for political persecution of people as well. That's kind of messed up, and it's very, very similar. In Argentina, for example, if you travel abroad and you buy stuff with your credit card, if you buy over a certain limit, like if you buy over, maybe if you spend like $500 with your credit card, when you get back, there's going to be a guy from the Argentine IRS waiting for you to explain why is it that you spend this money here and here and here. If you send your kid to a private school, a red flag goes up. Why are you sending your kid to a private school? How is it that you're able to finance that? That's the same excuse they use for banning the purchase of foreign currency. Why is it that you're buying foreign currency? Why is it that, where is it that you got this money? And if you said that you saved it, that wasn't enough of an excuse. They are the ones that tell you that based on your income, you're allowed to buy a certain amount of money. And for example, a doctor, which would be like a higher earning kind of professional anywhere in the world, including Argentina, a doctor would not be allowed to buy more than $50 each month, because of the kind of earning he was getting. So the average guy would not be allowed at all to buy a single dollar. Nothing.
Crazy. So
and
here you work hard, you create this wealth, and you put it in an Argentine bank, and you go, every year that my wealth is going to drop by 30%. Or the everything that I buy is going to be 30% more expensive. So I want to move this into another store of value, another store of wealth. I want to buy gold or silver or dollars to hedge against inflation. And they go, no, all the results of your labor, you keep it in those pesos and you go down with the ship like everybody else.
Exactly. Yes, they cut off any form of. They cut off for most of the people because they do whatever it is they want. The guys running things, or the guys that have a good political leverage. So the true rich people of the country that have enough power and enough political context, they get away with doing anything. But the average guy definitely gets it. And it's, as you say, it's you being forced to put that money into a bank that's going to be losing. What people end up doing, for example, right now they were buying cars like crazy because it was one of the ways in which you would at least have the car and it wouldn't lose as much money. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't lose as much value as money in the bank. So that's the kind of thing that people are doing these days.
So, like just in your life and your personal experience, what was the process to get to this point? Did it happen fast? Did it happen a long time? Did you wake up one day, or was it a slow process? Like, what was the point where you decided, like, hey, let's go to Ireland?
Yeah, it was. I think this had been happening for some time. During the 90s. 90s was a good decade for Argentina, all things considered. Mm-hmm. The average guy in Argentina during the 90s was making more dollars than the average American.
Whoa.
So the average income of the Argentine middle class was more dollars than the guy in US. So it wasn't worth it for you as an Argentine to go to US to make even less money. You would live in Argentina, make more money, go to US on holidays and spend money like nothing.
Uh-huh.
At the same time, the country had been borrowing money from the International Monetary Fund. Those payments weren't being met, and because of this, during those times, the peso was pegged to the dollar artificially. So $1 was 1 peso. So you made 10,000 pesos a month. You were making $10,000 a month working as a clerk in Argentina. So that was a pretty good deal. But because of that, the government was getting lots and lots of loans and not returning that money. All the investments just were disappearing in thin air. So it eventually ended up defaulting on the national debt. That was in December 2001. And that was a huge mess. People realized all of a sudden they froze people banks accounts, like you saw recently in Cyprus, with freezing banks accounts and all that stuff. You couldn't get your money out of the bank. All the accounts that were in dollars were converted to pesos at a awful poor exchange rate. So they just stole your money, man. You had $100,000. All of a sudden they say, well, now you have 100,000 pesos. That's worth, 1/3 of what those dollars were worth. And you are thinking, well, right to private property, my constitutional rights, none of that matters. And it's not only Argentina, any country. Sometimes I like having, those debates with people. Just a couple of days ago, a guy was saying, well, but if I have a contract, forget about a contract. No matter any country in the world, including U.S., if they want to get away with it, they just change it. Mm-hmm. They either come up with an emergency decree of some sort of presidential order or something, and they get the Congress to go along with it because we know that the too big to fail thing. That basically, once you scare people enough, they sign away anything. So, laws are written and erased just as easily.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the people are too dumb to get mad about it. They just go, well, I guess it's for our own good. We've been not a lot, but there's just been a couple little like peeps and chirps here and there about consumer protection that look at what happened in the housing market with this housing bubble. And these bankers are so predatory with these predatory loans and stuff. And the next big bubble could be the private retirement accounts. And we have, almost $20 trillion in private accounts. And we can't let these bankers pull, any funny business and risk those accounts. So to protect the average American, we might, convert some of those accounts into, treasury bonds as a way of protecting the consumer from the bankers. And same thing, it's like it's this money grab, and people are going to go, oh, I don't know. It's not like we're talking about it on the national scale, but it's
what happened in Argentina. So as to protect the people from these predator, the government took over the private retirement funds from the people. They just took over the retirement funds of the people. They just took it for themselves, and they started spending that money in any way they saw fit. They actually spent over $1,000 million in football. So as to have football for everyone, instead of like pay-per-view kind of thing, they would finance football. You know how soccer is very big. Well, they would finance football for people, and they proudly made the announcement that from now on, football would be free for everyone in Argentina. Of course, they stole everyone's money to finance that. So,
but then if you're kind of like, you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you don't have a retirement account anyways, you go, oh, this is great. I didn't have a retirement before, but I paid for football. Now I still don't have a retirement account, but I get free football. This is awesome. I love the government.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how people don't see all these things, don't realize, they don't realize that they're still paying for it. They're paying it with their taxes, with their deductions, and all that, and they're getting stolen. They're getting stolen the choice of actually having the freedom of saying, I don't care about football and I just want my money back. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, they shouldn't be stealing people's money anyway. If you have a retirement fund, then it's your retirement fund. No one should take that away from you and choose for you what is it that they do with their money. Let alone spend that money on football in a country where there's people starving to death, where most of the schools are falling apart, and the free medical care system is a complete joke. I think those are things more important than football.
Yeah. So, what's going on in Argentina now? Like, do your friends back in Argentina, like, do they go to the bar on Friday night and they're having beers and they go, oh, Fernando, he ran away with his tail between his legs and now he's all by himself in Ireland? Or are they like, oh man, Fernando, do you know anybody that can hook us up with a visa? I don't know, what's it like? Is it bad? Is it not that bad?
I think that Argentines in general are tough people because of the environment. I saw things go south before. I remember being a kid and buying candy with bills that said 5,000 australes. It was like, and then you realize when you go out in the world and you realize that's not normal for a country to change currency every 10 years or so. Yeah. Or living with the kind of crime problems that you have in Argentina. I think that some people are more laid back and say, okay, this is what we got handled. We just make the best of it. And Argentines like having fun like anyone else. And nightlife in Buenos Aires is great until 5-6 a.m. There's clubs, bars, and all that sort of thing. But there's always that concern that everyone with a little half an ounce of a brain, anyone in Argentina realizes that things are not going well at all, and they're not letting you, as we were saying before, they're not letting you buy foreign currency. They're not letting you spend your money freely abroad. Right now, recently it was 25 de Mayo, 25 of May, like a national celebration in Argentina, like independence. It's not like the independence. It's like when they became free from Spain and such. So it's like a big holiday thing, right? And it's also the day in which they're celebrating. The government is celebrating 10 years in power, and you would see like thousands of people there in front of the presidential building cheering and all those folks were either forced to go there or they were being paid to go there. And it was actually my sister-in-law, my wife's sister. She was telling me that she was getting told by some of the people in her office that they had to go to they had to go. Are you Argentine? Are you not proud of our wonderful government? You have to go. She was saying she was actually scared of saying I don't want to go. She actually had to come up with an excuse so as to not go. That's just not cool. If you start living that way, to answer your question, most of the people that I talk, they say you just left when things were getting from bad to scary, actually. It had been bad since 2001 when everything went down and the currency collapsed and all that. But now it's like the loss of freedom and the political persecution of the government, it's really bad. It's really bad. Anyone that tells you that Argentina has a good government right now, they have a dog in the fight, to say the least.
Yeah. So, you hear that and you live in Ireland, so I don't know, how does that make you? Obviously, you feel like you made the right decision,
It makes, yes, absolutely. I left after the re-election of Cristina Kirchner. That's when I realized that things were not going to be changing, at least for 4 more years. And I also knew that generally what happens is that politicians, when they think of doing something very nasty that's unpopular, they wait until they are re-elected before doing it for obvious reasons. Man, it wasn't a week after that she started with all these awful laws and changing the laws so as to suppress freedom of speech, restricting the purchase of foreign currency. I left just a couple of weeks before they started looking for money, for dollars. They actually had dogs in airports looking for dollars, as if it was some kind of drug.
Wow.
So the feeling that I have is, on one hand, I feel happy that I left when things were getting worse, and realizing that maybe a few weeks or a few months later, I wouldn't have been able to leave as as well as I did. Maybe having to take more of a hit financially, losing money because of all these restrictions. On the other hand, I feel bad about the people that I left behind.
Yeah.
My family, some of my family that stayed there, my nephews. Every time I think about it, I feel like crap because I feel that I should be there helping them out, being there for them, and I'm not. And I feel like a selfish prick that left people that needed me.
Yeah. But, then on the other hand, too, maybe, because this is something I always think about. I have a brother and a sister, and I'm very close with my family, and I always think that same thing. Like, if we're following you on that path, do I stay here and support the people that I love, or maybe if I were to go somewhere, I would be in a position to help out more.
Exactly. Yes.
Maybe if I had a business in a different country, I would say, hey, brother and sister, I'll hire you guys. You guys come be my employees or whatever. And, I can be the bridge to get my family out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we always say. We have a room here, and we're able to take you in, and you can study, or you can do whatever it is that you want to work, or but just know that you have someone outside that is able to help you out. That's what we can offer and give them, right?
Yeah. What do you do there in Ireland right now?
Well, I'm still doing. I wrote a book about the economic collapse in Argentina. It's called Surviving the Economic Collapse, and I have a website also, the Modern Survivalist. That's a website about modern survival. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I don't want to just talk about nasty stuff. So,
Yeah.
what kind of things do you look forward to going back? Obviously, you hope that things get better and you go back, and tell us what kind of things that you miss about your country and you look forward to seeing again.
Uh, yeah, most of my family. I wish that things would get better, and maybe one day go back. Because at the end of the day, your country, the place you come from, there's no place like home, as they say. I think that's true to a big margin. I miss some of the food, for example, is something that I miss quite a bit. It's not like Mexican food, like too spicy, but the kind of food that we do, like empanadas, that sort of thing. I kind of miss it. And also what we were talking about in the beginning, like how people are. For example, in Argentina, I would maybe invite a few friends home. They would stay over. Maybe I would invite them for tea, like at 4 or 5 p.m. And then we would stay talking, and maybe, hey, we order a pizza and we stay a little bit. Yeah, sure, no problem. And we would stay until 1 a.m. maybe 2 a.m. talking about anything. Or for example, in my gun club, we would meet every Friday night. We would just go shooting, and after shooting, we would all get together and make a barbecue until 11, 12 p.m. easily.
Cool.
And here it's like people are more structured. Like you're invited from 5 to 6, and then you have you're expected. They don't people don't hang out as much as I suppose we used to.
Yeah. That's
I
really
think
cool.
that also happens in U.S. No, a little bit more more or less formal.
Yeah, but we're maybe somewhere in between the two, where, like you said before, I think that the whole Latin culture and lifestyle, you guys just really get the flavor out of life.
Yeah.
My family is all from the Basque Country, but in France. So I've spent a lot of time over there. So the Basque culture, but then also I've spent time, on the Spanish side, so it's a Spanish thing too.
It's a Latin thing.
Yeah, the Latin thing, and
Right.
just the music and the food, and just I had a friend who he lived in Bilbao, and he was
Right.
American, so he lived with this family while he did a study abroad. So I spent some time with them, and they would go out at like all the Americans would go out at after class, like at 5 p.m. like you said. And his family would say, "What are you doing? You can't go out at 5 p.m. You go out at 10 or 11 or midnight.
Right.
Like the night doesn't get started until midnight, and then you're out all night long, and you come back when the sun comes up." And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I have my family actually, my family comes from Spain. My grandparents, they all come from Spain. They moved to Argentina because of the civil war in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And then when things got bad economically and all these problems in Argentina, they left to Spain themselves. So went back and forth, the different generations, It's very interesting how you go from one place to another, then that place. My grandparents, my grandmother, she was like, "Oh, we left Spain, and now you go back there." But it used to be so different back in the day. It was about taking a boat and being like 3 weeks in a freaking boat.
yeah,
And you weren't going back anytime soon once you left. And there was no internet, there was no nothing.
uh-huh.
So, but yeah, I think that's like a Latin thing, like Italy, Spain, Portugal, France, and South America. It's that Latin thing that we have in common, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Just us like pasty white people here in America, we seem so boring comparatively. I remember one time I was in the Basque Country in France, and in the summer, all the villages have their summer festival. They're called the Beshtas. And so every town has one, and ask any young person and they go, "Okay, this weekend is Saint Palais. As soon as Saint Palais is done, we go to Molion. As soon as Molion's done, then the next day we go over to Bayonne." And like the whole summer, when one stops, the next one starts. And people come from all over to go to these parties. So I was in this one little town, and I think there's like maybe 300 people that live there, like a little village way up in the mountains. And for their festival for like 3 days, there were just tens of thousands of people. You couldn't drive a car through the town because the streets were just like this. And there was music in the streets and people drinking and singing and dancing. In a city of 300 people. And in my town here, we have 20,000 people, and our summer festival is like so boring. We have a little parade and a barbecue, and that's about it,
It's so lame in comparison, right?
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, we gotta have those Basque people teach us how to party.
I suppose it's also like, at least in Argentina, you have so much bad stuff going on, and the economy sucks. The politicians are even worse. So you kind of have to enjoy the good things that you have. So, for example, if football, it's like soccer or whatever. It's like a big thing, and for a lot of people, it's my mom and soccer, my soccer team. It's like those are your priorities in life. It's crazy, but I suppose that's one of the reasons why you're so passionate about that sort of thing, and about having a good time as well. And also, it's like a practical thing as well in terms of family. When everything is so messed up, the only support that you have, the true support that you have, is your family. So I think that's also one of the reasons why family is so big. People that had to move back to their parents as grown-ups, or 25% unemployment, everything sucks. You have to stay home and do the best of it. That's why it's so important to be like a strong family group. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that we brought from our parents and our grandparents that came either from Spain or, like in my case, or from Italy. Argentina is half Spanish immigrants, half Italian immigrants. Oh. It's just the way it is. So, for example, my wife's family, they come from Italy. They have an Italian last name and all the Italian traditions that they brought. I have all the Spanish traditions that we brought, that our grandparents brought themselves. In both cases, I realized that they left because of tough conditions in Europe. So they also were used to that a strong family union. Like every Saturday, you would get together with a family. Either if you were Spanish, it was like some empanada gallega or something like that, or maybe barbecues, or for Italians, it was pasta. But for one reason or the other, it was every Sunday, everyone together.
Cool. Yeah, that's really neat. I read this book recently about this girl who lived in Chechnya through the wars, and obviously I'm not, comparing Argentina to Chechnya, but somebody had said something to her about how, all you people know is war, like all your whole existence has just been like fighting and destruction and war, and that's just like what those people understand. And she said, no, it could not be further from the truth. She said, when you have experienced so much suffering like we have, you learn how to savor every little taste of joy in life. So she said the same thing. She was like, we have the best meals and the best barbecues, and we don't need much to be happy. We get a loaf of bread and a brick of cheese, and me and my friends are going to go out by the river and have the best time of our life.
Right. We're going to be partying with that piece of cheese and bread like you've never seen before.
Yeah. So that was just really kind of cool just to think about. Like I said, I don't want to revel in negativity. I want to be smart about my future, but at the same time too, like there is still so much in my country and in your country to be proud of and to enjoy.
Right. Yeah. I think that it's also that's the positive side of all the bad things that we were talking about. You learn to appreciate those things. You learn to appreciate family more, your loved ones, the people around you. I was just getting married when all this was happening. Starting a family and all that, and man, it is what keeps you going when everything is a little bit tougher. That's what gets you going. I suppose that when things are much better, when you don't have, like for example in Spain before the crisis in Spain, they were doing great. They were working almost nothing at all, making a ton of money. They would work for 1 year and then take 1 year off. That sort of insane thing, and the birth rate had dropped a lot in those years because people didn't want to have kids. They didn't want to have responsibilities. They were partying all day long and doing great. They weren't getting married either. And all of a sudden, lots of people right now are getting together because of rent being cheaper, being paid by two. And, well, we don't have much, but maybe if we have a kid, we have a family, we have something to, keeps us going. So that's funny how those things change when there's more hardships, I suppose, right?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I'm curious about, so like you said, you have this website, Modern Survivalist, and so I'm in a position now where I'm a young guy, and like I said, I listen to some of these people who, first of all, I really like the idea of, obviously I love my country, I love America, and then my ethnicity too. Like I'm so proud to be Basque, but at the same time, I'm attracted to the idea of being like really self-reliant and international. Where I'm like, I love America and the Basque country, but I'm not reliant on those. Like if America were to have any kind of fluctuation, I'm in charge of my own destiny. I can go somewhere else, or I have at least a foot in another place, where I'm not at the mercy of anybody else. But a lot of that, like the people that live lifestyles like that, they have a lot of money and they've got, international businesses and stuff. So I'm not at that point yet. So like just in your experience, like what you lived through and then all the writing and stuff that you do you see like steps that people could take to add more freedom to their life right now? Like even if you don't have a lot of money to like open a bank account in a different country, what can you do to like kind of hedge yourself or protect yourself?
Well, opening a bank account is getting harder these days, but it's still very much possible to open a foreign bank account. If you have for example, I suppose you have a European citizenship of some sort.
No,
No, man, you
I
should
believe me, I looked
apply.
into it.
You should really look into. If you, I mean, that's for example one of the things that people don't realize that they could do it right now, and actually it's not really expensive. If you have Irish ancestors, it's just a matter of doing it, and you could get an European citizenship that opens a lot of doors for you. Once you have, for example, I was able to come here because I had, and this was thanks to my grandfather. My grandfather, having left Spain because of the Civil War and suffering, moving to Argentina as a foreigner, he realized how important it was to be a citizen wherever it is that you go. So when we were little, he took us, me and my brothers, to the embassy, the Spanish embassy, to get our Spanish passport. And my folks were telling him, well, why are you doing that? That's not worth it. We're never going to be... And he just says, just in case, just have it. You know, and that basically opens the entire European continent for any country that you want, and you can just go there and find a job and be a citizen and not struggle with one of those things. That would be a great start. The big first step would be finding if you have any ways of getting another citizenship, another visa. Opening a bank account in another country, it's just a matter of looking into it. And what I see is that it gives you the opportunity of, if things are going very bad or about to collapse somewhere, it gives you the possibility of moving your money as much or as little as you can from one place to another. If you just have $5,000 and the economy is going to be going down, or you're going to be losing that, it is still all you have, you know?
Yeah.
So if you can save it, that's great. And finally, what I think that's very good is having a business of your own, anything, being your own boss, having your own business. Of course, if it's internet based, of course that's a huge step forward, because it allows you to do it from anywhere, no matter where you are, which allows you to move freely quite a bit without worrying about having a specific job wherever it is that you're going. I think that everyone has a passion or something that can be exploited. In my case, I just liked writing and exchanging ideas about what I was going through in Argentina when all this was going down, and that, without even realizing, became my thing. I was just working as an architect, and that was what I was doing. I was working as a teacher in the University of Buenos Aires in architecture. But life takes you in different paths. You know?
Yeah. Who are most of your audience? Is it mostly Americans that kind of your message resonates with?
Yeah. Mostly it's like 95% guys from U.S. and that's it's definitely the main audience that are showing an interest. Well, preparedness and survival is huge in U.S., especially right now. It is spreading a little bit more in Europe, but Europeans are a little bit more, oh, these crazy Americans with their guns and such. And you look at it, well, whatever, If you don't see the wisdom in it, that's just you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's really cool. Obviously, I asked that last question, but this website is just about kind of like my love for travel and trying to connect people. Obviously, with a political side to it, because I don't want to see us keep drone striking people who are different than us and stuff. But
yeah,
I'm kind of thinking that I'd like to do another website too, where I talk a little bit more about like how young people can act on this kind of stuff, like what I just asked. Like if you're not in a position to move your family, or if you don't have a lot of capital, like what kind of steps can you still do to because we have the most skin in the game. Like I said, I look at my stepdad and I go, he's 67 and he's at a point now where he's just fed up with doing business in the United States. He said, like, with the taxation and stuff, it's just not worth it to him anymore. And I go, what's it going to be like when I'm 67? So I want to start making some steps now to prepare myself.
anything that you can do so as to have more freedom is always a step forward in my opinion. But again, if you manage to do anything that it's like a business that you're running yourself, and especially if it's internet based, that's always that's it right there, because it gives you the freedom of not depending on not being stuck in a place.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes when I talk about these topics in my website and such, people think that if you think this way, you're anti-American because what you're talking about leaving U.S., like you're the worst American ever. Nothing is really that permanent either. Maybe you just go and live somewhere else for some time, and maybe after 4 or 5 years you could just move back. Mm-hmm. Many Americans that had been living in Argentina for 20 years left right now because of all the things that were happening, and they moved back to U.S. after 20 years. I actually know a guy that did just that, and I talked with him last week. So nothing is like that permanent, and just living somewhere else does not mean that you don't love and really like your own country too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's just kind of like that when they say the world is your oyster, right? How there's so many amazing places in the world, and I've never for like super long, but a few months here, a year there. I've spent time in Cambodia and Thailand and France and China and West Africa, and same thing. None of that meant that I didn't love my country, but those are these memories that I have now, and I have like a fuller understanding of the world. And I had a lot of fun in those places. So yeah, I mean, why not just try to savor the world, get all the flavor out of it.
Yeah, and I wish I had done more traveling myself as a kid when I was younger. Now that I have 2 kids of my own, 2 little kids, I have to be a little bit more cautious. I mean, if it was for me, I would just be under a palm tree all day long. But I have other things to keep in mind as well. But at the same time, I think I'm giving my kids a great life experience, being educated somewhere else. The struggle of the challenge actually of learning a second language and being my kid. He's 10 years old and he's fluent in English and Spanish already.
Yeah,
I think that's a very valuable tool for him in the future.
For sure.
And he can say that he lived in Argentina, he lived in Ireland, and who knows where we're gonna be going next in the future.
Yeah, the adventure will continue. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We've already talked for quite a while, but I just have a couple last questions.
Yeah, no problem.
So we've obviously talked a lot about Argentina, I mean, the whole time, but if you wanted somebody to just have, one takeaway from Argentina, one message that you wanted to share from your country, what would it be?
That it's a wonderful country with wonderful people. It is a country with amazing natural resources. You have awesome beaches. You have the highest mountains in the entire American continent. You can ski and you can do anything. You have deserts in the north. You have wonderful lakes and forests in the south. And people are intelligent, resourceful. It is a wonderful place. I think that anyone that travels to Argentina likes Argentines a lot. I think we're very likable people. And it's only that it is a bad time in terms of what's the economy looking like right now. But in spite of that, it is a wonderful place.
Cool. And then last question, just on a personal level, not necessarily as an Argentine or whatever, but just what message would you personally like? If you had the opportunity to say one thing to every person in the world, like what would your personal message be?
Life is too short. Do what it is that you'll enjoy the most, and don't be worried about what you're told you should do or be like. Be whatever it is that you like being. Do whatever it is that you like doing. Eventually, you'll do it good enough that you'll be able to make a living out of that as well. So don't focus on, oh, I have to do this, that, and just enjoy it and do what it is that you love the most.
Cool. Good sage words. Well, thanks so much for talking to me today, Fernando. That was a lot of fun.
Okay, well, great. I enjoyed our conversation a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And if you ever need anything, just let me know.
Okay, thanks a lot, man.
Cool. Talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye. So that was Fernando from Argentina. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if any of that resonated with you, if you'd like to learn more, his website, like he said, is themodernsurvivalist.com. So check him out and tune in again for another interview with someone from somewhere in the world. Thanks for watching.